welcome to the Design Hat podcast. Today we have David with us. He's a product designer at Passive White, and welcome, David. Thank you for being here, man.
Thank you very much, Avi. It's a pleasure being here.
Perfect. Let's just kickstart this podcast by knowing you and your introduction. But really want to know why you came into design. Like, why did you choose design?
Okay, so I think getting to design was accidental in quotes, if I can say. So someone recently reached out to me. Let me start from there. My one of my lecturers recently reached out to me and was like, "Wow, that like, it was really a bold step of me taking, like having done all of my like courses in like cybersecurity and all of that, moving down to design," and it had me thinking like, how did I even get here? So I think basically it all started like growing up. So my dad is into print design. So there was always a computer at home where I could like play around with stuff. And I think at that time it was CorelDRAW. CorelDRAW is more like popular in like the print design world over here. So I was just playing around with like gradients and like text art and all of that. So I think that was where it all started. Over time, I moved up to like Photoshop and stuff. But they were all things I did on the side. It wasn't really like any big deal. I really didn't even get paid for anything. It was just a hobbyist like kind of thing. But I think I'd always loved everything around like tech. I'd always wanted to like write code, be a developer, and all of that. So I think I was already like writing code and all. But I got into this internship at a certain time, and um, that was actually when I actually began to take design seriously because during the internship, I got into the internship like writing code, but over time, I think there was a task that we were meant to do, and through that task, I was moved like to the design track, and that was where like my whole career in product design started. So yeah, since then it's been a fun ride. So.
Sounds interesting, man. Just going forward, I want to ask, like you also mentioned you did your bachelor's in computer science and mostly in cybersecurity. I want to know how did that pushed you towards continuing design or like into design, or did that help or not in any way?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it helped like directly, but let me say over time. So I think it just helped me discover that I was more like into like let me say the visual representation of like software. So over time we're learning like coding, we're learning programming and all, but started out with Java and like doing tutorials on my own. We're always doing things in the command line. I was not really seeing the result of like everything that I wanted to do, but through the line, I later got into like web development, still from school, because like we had like a particular course that had to do like with web development, and also I discovered that okay, I was able to like see the results of what I was writing. So if I wrote like a tag, like a H1 tag, I could see what that H1 tag would produce in the browser. I think that was where it all began. Was like, okay, I really liked how I was being able to see like feedback from the code I was writing. So basically, I think it just laid the foundation of code for me, if I could say. It laid the foundation of like the sciences in terms of like computer science and like writing code and all of that and programming. So I think it laid that foundation for me, and over time, opportunities that came my way just moved me towards like the design path. So I think all of that was basically just foundational stuff, and yeah, was
Interesting, interesting. So when did you got your first design job or gig?
my first design job was right after school. I think I can't forget that because I was still in school. I really didn't even expect I was going to get the job. Funny enough, I was still in school when I applied for it. I'd not even submitted my project. I'd not even finished everything, but I applied for it like while I was still in school. And after then, it was like they reached out to me probably a month after I got back home, probably a month after I got back home. So it was like, who are these? When did I apply for this and all of this? So I later went back and thought, okay, yeah, this were the guys I applied for, and that was like the marketing design role at Paid. It was really interesting. It was really interesting because I think it opened my eyes up. One thing I like enjoyed about the role was the fact that it didn't just open me up to like doing work and stuff. It opened me up to a lot of things that I didn't know, even things I felt like, oh, I knew this, and I put them in my resume, and I was able to do this. It just opened my eyes to a lot of things that I really didn't know, and that was something I was appreciative about. That I didn't really stay long there because of like management issues and all of that. But yeah, that was my first job.
Interesting. So, did you like you mentioned about paid and how you got a marketing design role? Just want to ask because not really a lot of people have a title as a marketing designer. What did you really do about that? Like, what was your work?
That's actually an interesting question because my role there, let me say, I was hired, or the role I was given when I was hired, or let me say the title, yes, that's the word. The title I was given when I was hired was graphics slash web designer. But over time, I think when I had been following like Charlie Pragley, I think it's Charlie Murray TV on YouTube. I'd been following her for a while, and I was like, wait, this was almost exactly what this. It wasn't almost. This was exactly what I was doing in paid while I was there. I was like, yeah, just to make it more like representative of the role, because I felt like web/graphic designer is not something that is a title like that's very known as a title. But marketing designer in the whole tech space, I think it's more recognized as, okay, this is what these people do, and this is what the role involves. So I think that was what made me change it, like in all of my like profiles and everything. But initially, like the title I was given when I was hired was web/graphics designer. So yeah, it was something that I later got to discover that, okay, this is actually marketing design, and this is what it is. So basically, marketing designer is just involved with let me say um designing stuff to sell or like showcase a company's like products or services to like the public. I'll say that they are the custodians of probably the company's brand and all of that. So stuff you can see like a marketing designer working on are things like the company swag, presentation slides, like print material, social media assets, and those are basically things I was doing at Paid. I was designing like a lot of banners, roll-up banners, billboards, even web banners like for the websites and all of that. I was designing flyers for like marketing and all of that. So I think those were basically things I was involved with at Paid, which was one of the reasons why I figured that this is marketing design and this is what it involves. So yeah.
But after doing a marketing design role, you even though your role was just a web designer or graphic designer, your work mostly around surrounded that. Then you kind of joined Relay as a UI developer. Just wanted to know, did you thought that getting back into a bit of coding was good? Like, why did you do it, and how did you got that opportunity?
Okay, so I think after my job at Paid, there was kind of like a break because there's this program that I needed to do in Nigeria here after like my after leaving school. It's called youth service, so it's like a 1 year program. So during that period, I was like, let's say I was like doing the whole youth service program, and afterwards I got reached out to by this company. Really, it was actually based on a referral, cause like I had a relationship with the co-founder. It was kind of like a family like friend and all of that. So it was like, dude, you're out of work. What's up? Can you do this? Oh no, you even came in as they were looking for someone. Because at that point, I had, yeah, like that, I think that's an interesting story. Because at that point, I'd actually stopped coding for probably 6 to 7 months. It was before, it was during that period that I actually got into that internship that I spoke about earlier, where I was moving like to the design track and all of that. So I was so into product design at that particular point in time. I because I that was my first, like, should I say, that was my first my first interaction with like product design, I had known nothing about UI UX before that point. So I was really, really, really engulfed in the whole like product design space, and I was learning stuff, doing tutorials, designing stuff. So that's what I was doing within those months that I said that I wasn't like writing code anymore at that point. So I was looking for people for them. I was like trying to say, and I didn't get anybody because at that point, a UI developer role basically it's kind of like a UI designer and a front end developer, depending on how like the company is structured. So the front end developer's role involves like HTML, CSS, and like front end engineering in terms of like JavaScript, React, and all of that kind of stuff. So I like my JavaScript at that point was very, very sloppy, was very sloppy. So I was like, I can't handle JavaScript. I can't handle JavaScript, but I can do HTML, CSS. And they were like, yeah, they really don't need JavaScript at this particular time, as long as it's something that I would want to learn along the way. That they already had like full stack developers that handled front end and back end engineering. I was like, okay, sure. They gave me a test. It was basically like a coding test, just converting like one page from, because at that time, why they needed like a UI developer at that point in time was because they were moving like the products they had from Webflow down to like using React to build everything from scratch. So they just gave me the test was actually converting one of those like former pages on Webflow to HTML, CSS. So that was what the test involved. So it was basically the fact that at that point in time I was out of a job, ended a job, like, and this was like family friend, and yeah, it was something I could do, and it was related to like design that I'd already started learning. And yeah, so that's how I got the job, and that was what basically involved.
Nice, interesting. Now, again, like you started as design, then you got back into a bit of coding, uh, and design as well, and then you got now currently at Passivite, you are working as a product designer. Just wanted to know, now getting back to design. I know that everybody who's a UI UX designer eventually becomes a product designer no matter what, but just
Yeah.
wanted to ask how that transition happened, and like why from UI developer you got into designing again.
Yeah, so it's still basically related to what I was saying. Like before I got the job as a UI developer, I was basically like trying to move away from writing code like primarily. I was like basically trying to move away from writing code because I discovered that like product design was basically what I was looking for from the beginning. I talked about the fact that I was like into the visual like feedback that I was getting from like writing code in like HTML, CSS, and seeing them on the browser. It was basically design was something that I really loved to do, and I found like a path in design that I really was passionate about. So basically, it was me moving away from writing code from the beginning. Just that okay, I had to interface with like a UI developer role in the whole like path. So basically, I was moving away from like code itself. So that's how I found myself here, like in product design, like trying to settle down on like the product designer path, like leaving code and all of that. So that's how I got here. It's not anything deep. It's just the fact that I'm trying to move away from like writing code and all of that.
Perfect. Now, for example, if someone as a beginner who wants to learn UI designing, do you would you say that learning coding is compulsory or important?
I wouldn't say it's compulsory, but I would say like we could see it as important. So I think knowing code as a designer is just like, let me see what illustration. It's just like bread and butter. Let me say whether bread and butter or bread and jelly or bread and egg or anything. You could have bread on its own and it's really nice, but having it with butter makes it even more nice. Like it makes it nicer. So that's just how it is. Like you could be a designer on your own and it's like super cool. Like you definitely know what to do and how to like do your job as a designer. But knowing how to code just makes it nicer because you're able to relate with your like developers and like engineers when handing off and all. You know the limitations of code. You know, okay, these are the things, or this is how like the engineer or the developer is going to be working on this when they are trying to implement this. I think a quick example of that was a certain time I was working on this landing page with this guy, and there was something I did in the design, and it felt really strange to him. And he came back, and I was like, okay, what was I trying to do here? And I basically explained how he was going to implement it in code, and he really appreciated that because he was like, okay, you're going to use like a negative margin, or you're going to do this. Some of those things were things like he didn't know, like, but basically because of the fact that I already like had some knowledge of code, I was able to explain it. And even while I was designing it, it was already in my mind that this was how I would implement it if this was me. So sure, like being a designer is super cool and all of that. Like it's not compulsory to learn how to code. It's not like it's not mandatory, but it sure is nice. Like it helps you like in the designs you're making and how like the implementations will turn out. So yeah.
That's interesting. I think that's important because it's not compulsory, but knowing it always helps when you are trying to hand
Yeah.
over your designs to a developer, obviously.
Yeah.
Now we are almost at the end of the podcast. This is one of the questions that I ask from every guest who comes on. What would be your two pieces of advice would you like to give to anyone who is listening or watching this, which can help them out in their general, it can be in their life, can be in design, can be anything.
Okay, let me see. This is also like in life and like design and all. I think is actually building networks and like building relationships. So, one thing I've come to discover in like the past couple of years, like working, living life, and all of that, is the fact that there are many things you can't do on your own. There are many things you can't learn on your own. There are many places that you can't get access to on your own. Some of these things are things that your network, your friends, people that you meet somewhere, acquaintances that you like meet along the way are going to help you with. So it might be a resource that someone is going to share with you. It might be the fact that someone is going to mention you to like a recruiter and all of that. So basically, being able to like work within a community might not necessarily like a big community, like maybe like a design community on Twitter and all of that, but basically just even in your local like environment, have friends. Don't just sit at home and try to like be a lone ranger. I know it's tough, like, especially like in our industry. A lot of us in our industry are introverts. Like a lot of us in our industry identify as introverts. So I know it's tough, but over time you will discover that it's more helpful to relate with people and to build like friendships, to build like a community of people that you can actually relate with over time rather than working on yourself as a lone ranger. Then the second thing I would say is in everything you're trying to learn, start from the basics. In everything you're trying to learn, whether it's design, whether it's code, whether it's architecture, whether it's cooking, whatever it is you're trying to learn, start from the basics. Because I discovered that many times, like we have this should I say, this anxiety when we are trying to learn stuff and we're trying to become a professional in 2 days. Like you just started learning something and you're comparing yourself to people that have been in the industry for 10 years, then you're now trying to do what they are doing. No, everybody starts from like being a learner. Everybody starts from being a beginner somewhere at every point in time. So basically, or should I say, starting with the basics is what will get you to that point. So don't jump steps. If you want to learn typography, start with the basics. If you want to learn color, start with the basics. Then you'll be able to over time build up on those like foundational knowledge to be able to do some of those things that you see like people that have been in industry for years doing. So yeah,
That's
those
interesting,
are
man.
my two
That's
cents.
I think that's interesting, and that is a very important tips that everybody who is listening or watching should take it out from this particular one. Thank you so much, man, for coming in. Thank you so much, David, for giving your time out to the
My
people,
pleasure.
to the audience who is listening. I think this
Thanks
podcast
for
is
having
something
me.
very interesting. Everybody who is gonna learn a lot from this one. Uh, and thanks a lot, man, and for coming in and pouring in your time. And thanks a lot for everyone for listening this particular one or watching this wherever and however you are watching or listening this. If you wanna connect to David, I will link down his socials in the description box below, and you guys can connect with him, reach out to him in any way possible, and see you guys in the next one.